This video is brought to you by Redden. What's up, everybody? Michael here. I don't know about you, but in this chaotic world, I've found there's no better cure for ongoing feelings of dread than, nope, not a carton of Cherry Garcia, but some dopamine-inducing videos of people acting like dogs. I'm talking about TikTok. As of last year, the app had 1 billion active users, making it one of the largest and fastest growing social media platforms. But as the app and its algorithm become more ubiquitous, we're learning in real time how it's affecting our society and even our brains. And some worry it's doing so for the worse.
Who created the air fryer? Really? Because I can't do it anymore.
Are these concerns legit or a tad overblown? Let's find out in this Wisecrack edition. Is TikTok evil? But before we dive in, I want to tell you about this video sponsor, Redden. When I look at the news lately, things are not great in a lot of ways. But among them is the ever-looming threat of climate disaster. And it's easy to feel helpless, but Redden is an easy way to help turn your concern for the climate into tangible action. First, Redden's easy quiz helps you calculate the exact size of your carbon footprint. They'll ask you about things like your diet, your travel habits, and other lifestyle basics. From there, they suggest ways for you to reduce your impact on the environment right off the bat. For instance, I should really stop driving short distances to pick up things like burritos when I could just walk. But because nobody's carbon footprint can be zero, Redden also offsets your remaining footprint with their targeted climate initiatives. As someone who lives in California, I was really impressed with Redden's biochar project, which removes dead trees from redwood forest and high fire risk areas. They turn these trees into biochar, a stable form of carbon that lasts for thousands of years. And while I'm extra pumped about Redden's projects that are local to me, their work resonates around the world. There's their mineral weathering project in Scotland, for instance, which turns atmospheric carbon into solid rock, all using accelerated natural geological processes, which is cool and all. But this project also includes a brigade of woolly pigs who prepare the soil for regrowth, and they are just so adorable. Once you sign up to make a monthly contribution that will be used to offset your carbon footprint, you'll receive monthly updates from the projects you support. So you will actually see the impact that you were making. Redden is pledged to plant 10 extra trees for the first 100 people who sign up using our referral link. So go to redden.co/start/wisecrack to join us in saving the rainforest and fighting the climate crisis. That's redden.co/start/wisecrack. And now, back to the show. There's a lot of debate about whether TikTok is a societal good or a societal evil. On the downside, it's been shown to increase anxiety, depression, and body image issues. And I don't know, it also allows a Chinese company to collect your personal data and possibly maybe collude with the Chinese government for fund censorship or propaganda reasons. Then again, Facebook misinformation played a key role in influencing elections, but hey, who's keeping score? But TikTok isn't all bad. It's great for making friends and expanding your community of people with niche interests like Midwest mom cooking hacks. Plus, it's an accessible, creative outlet that's super entertaining.
Look at the butterfly.
That was stupid. I mean, where else could you see this? Or this.
I added these tassels to it, and our lives have never been the same.
Or this. I could go on for literal hours, but I'll stop now. And it's this level of addiction that sets TikTok apart from other social media platforms. TikTok has a top-of-the-line algorithm that consistently gives you what you want. This never-ending quest for dopamine is what some researchers now refer to as TikTok brain. And parents and experts are worried about the impact it has on kids' shrinking attention spans. TikTok hasn't been around long enough for researchers to discern whether it permanently alters or damages kids' brains. But we couldn't help but notice these concerns are reminiscent of debates over whether violent video games cause increased aggression or whether heavy metal gives you an unquenchable thirst for goat blood. So is it possible we're projecting our deeply embedded societal fears onto TikTok? Odds are, yes. Fear almost always rides on the coattails of new technology. For example, Plato and Socrates both believed writing would destroy the oral tradition and make everyone forgetful. When trains were first invented, everyone thought centrifugal force would make women's uteruses fly out. They didn't do that. And in the late 19th century, experts warned that riding a bicycle could result in bicycle face, a condition where your face would permanently look blown back by a mighty wind. There was even a CNN article published in 2005 that said email hurt the IQ more than marijuana. These hypotheses all beg the question, why are we so freaked out by technology? And is TikTok the latest centrifugal uterus ejecting force in human development? Prior to the 18th century, science and technology were separate, non-threatening entities. Science was mostly based in heady theories, while technology was composed of skills passed down through the generations, like blacksmithing or cobbling. Then, in a classic rom-com meet-cute scenario, 18th century scientists Priestley and Lavoisier introduced these fields to each other via chemical discoveries that led to large-scale electricity. Just like that, science had practical applications and technology had a role in scientific progress. They completed each other. By the beginning of the 19th century, everyone was hyped on this new technology thing. Scientists and craftsmen intersected to create the engineer, and the world seemed full of possibilities. Flying machines, submarines, and the ability to talk to the dead were surely just around the corner, right? Technology transformed into a cure-all for the human condition, society, and the world, which is exactly how I used to feel about improv. Yes, and much like improv, the movement picked up cult-level enthusiasm. It became known as positivism. Auguste Comte, a French philosopher and positivist, dreamed of a utopian society where all the best scientists were in power and that they unified everyone through scientific and political progress. If that were true today, we'd be reciting the scientific method instead of the Pledge of Allegiance, which, when I really think about it, wouldn't be so bad. Unfortunately, before this utopia could take shape, people's enthusiasm and excitement for technology took a turn for the worse. The start of the Industrial Revolution kicked off a rise in collective tech anxiety. The landscape of people's lives, literally and figuratively, seemed to transform overnight. The new bourgeois emerged, and as they profited off new technologies, they didn't promote peace, fairness, and equality like people expected. Instead, they scooped up their money without regard for how it affected people around them. Meanwhile, workers were afraid of losing their jobs to machines and didn't have any social protections if that did happen. People's anxiety over tech boiled down to three big questions. 1. Could technology be destructive in the hands of the wrong people? 2. Could this power make humans into gods? And 3. Could humans be automated out of a job or purpose? Then a couple of world wars came around, you may have heard of them, and answered those first two questions with a resounding yes. It became crystal clear that humans could and would use science and technology to kill millions of people. While the rise of the internet in Silicon Valley revived a vision of technological utopia, anxiety surrounding tech would never vanish completely. Something about lightning-fast innovation continues to freak a lot of us out. Philosophers included. Martin Heidegger, a German philosopher who, we must note, was in the Nazi Party, was one of the first thinkers to associate technology with the devastation of humanity's desire for truth and meaning. Heidegger theorized that technology pulls us away from the true meaning of human existence, which he called Dasein, which describes our way of being in the world, always marked by the fact that our being is oriented towards our inevitable finitude, i.e., our death. In other words, Heidegger thought that when we stop looking for meaning in things like art and poetry, and instead rely on technology to make sense of the world, things start to have a primarily instrumental value. The next generation of German philosophers doubled down on this idea. The Frankfurt School theorized that post-war capitalist societies could become a kind of invisible totalitarianism founded on the domination of technology-fueled consumerism. People would slowly lose their willpower and be controlled through the manipulation of their desires. You know, like how TikTok does. Jürgen Habermas, one of the last living members of the Frankfurt School, believed technology has its own logic and threatens to destroy not only politics, culture, and human life, but the world. Because, again, technology can pull us away from both the essence of our human subjectivity and our desire to find meaning beyond profit and productivity. But as it turns out, technology hasn't destroyed everything yet. Except for my relationship with my Uncle Rob after he kept posting on Facebook. We can now communicate with far-flung friends and family more easily than ever before, which is rad. Again, except for with my Uncle Rob, we can have a life-saving bacon, egg, and cheese sent to our homes with the tap of a button as we writhe in bed hungover. Hell, you can even get a pacemaker that tracks your cardiac health and sends potentially life-saving status updates to your doctor. But in spite of countless net positive developments, new innovations like TikTok can still freak us out. And the anxiety around tech is alive and well. And some of this is valid. For one, social media and other data-based innovations collect, circulate, share, and profit off of our data on a global level. It's scary when our personal data is used for purposes outside of our control. It's double scary when TikTok's algorithm can so accurately predict and control our behavior. If technology can make us watch cat videos for hours, what's to stop it from taking over our lives completely? And what happens when the videos it serves us aren't just fun time wasters, but less fun conspiracy theories? Now, obviously, misinformation clogs up every social media platform as the Uncle Robs of the Facebook world unite to convince you that there's now a microchip in your happily vaccinated arm. But journalist and author Chris Stokel-Walker argues that TikTok's algorithm, coupled with the immediacy of its format, makes it especially ripe for misinformation. He writes, emotive videos can cause people to overlook whether or not information is legitimate. This can have real consequences. Analysis from media firm NewsGuard determined that misinformation about COVID reached a staggering 8 out of 9 children after just 35 minutes on the app. Many adults are concerned in particular about potentially misleading videos on what's known as therapy talk. This is a trend in which Gen Z self-diagnoses mental disorders after watching influencers' videos chronicling their own struggles. Experts are split on whether this is good or bad. On the one hand, influencers help normalize discussions around mental health, but on the other, misdiagnosing mental health issues can have serious consequences. To say nothing about the apps that are making it easier than ever for young people to get psych meds they may or may not need sent directly to their homes. However, what's at the crux of this issue is our very human tendency to trust popular people, even if they have no idea what they're talking about. Historically, the most popular people around have been celebrities, and the masses have loved following their examples. Whether they're channeling their inner Lord Byrons with ruffly shirts, raising AIDS awareness like Bono and Angelina Jolie, or drinking high-end tequila because George Clooney and his buddies make it. But celebrity influence can also backfire. Remember Jenny McCarthy? Well, back in 2005, she used her expertise as a parent to widely propagate the idea that the MMR vaccine caused her son's autism. Even today, you might have noticed that many Americans still aren't sure about vaccines. But whether you're turning to Tom Brady for nutritional advice, J-Lo for her hair care routine, or buying a Subway footlong because Steph Curry told you to, at the end of the day, celebrities, they're just like us, is a punchline for a reason. They are not like us. So where does a feeling of true trust and kinship exist in today's media landscape? TikTok, of course, where folks who are just like you are able to have a celebrity-like influence just by virtue of being themselves. As you take in the sheer volume of content from your favorite creators, it's easy to form what's called a parasocial relationship with them, i.e., one in which you feel like you already know that person in real life, even though they have no idea you exist. What's more, scholars Bhandari and Bimo suggested in their analysis of TikTok that in contrast to other social media platforms, the crux of interaction is not between users and their social network, but between a user and what we call an algorithmized version of self. So essentially, TikTok compounds these parasocial relationships with such algorithmic precision that not only are you looking at your favorite creator, but it also feels like you're looking into a mirror at yourself. You might be asking yourself, why are we as a human race predisposed to listening to celebrities and influencers instead of qualified experts? Well, there are evolutionary and psychological reasons behind why we trust who we trust. As far as influencers are concerned, we often fall victim to prestige-biased social learning. In basic terms, this is the tendency to trust and learn from people who have gained attention, respect, and admiration for success in a particular domain. In this case, TikTok subscribers and views. This adaptive social learning strategy developed as a shortcut to identifying group members who are thriving without needing to assess a 16-year-old superstar's individual merits. So, is potentially harmful and dangerous misinformation being spread on TikTok? Absolutely. But again, this isn't unique to TikTok. And Gen Zers' reliance on therapy talk for advice and guidance isn't what's standing in the way of them seeking mental health care. As many have pointed out, inaccessibility to mental health care is what drives young people to therapy talk for answers in the first place. So far, TikTok doesn't seem particularly evil, but what about TikTok's sides, aka little niche communities or echo chambers on the app? Could these result in greater political polarization? Not really. Ironically, political polarization currently occurs most in generations that use social media the least, aka the olds. Plus, political polarization has been growing in the US since the 1970s, long before Noodles ever had a no-bones day. But hey, it's a lot easier to blame TikTok than to address the real problems behind polarization, like growing income inequality, lack of access to education, resistance to multiculturalism and globalization, stagnant wages, and Taco Bell continuing to tease us with the return of the Mexican pizza. So then TikTok could and probably does cause polarization, but it's probably not the main culprit. In other words, human behavior may be to blame. And that makes us uncomfortable, so we use TikTok as a scapegoat for serious societal issues. For example, there are lots of studies floating around arguing that social media increases anxiety, depression, and poor self-esteem. The problem is many of those are correlational. Researchers sort people into two groups: people who consume TikTok and people who suffer from anxiety and depression. Then they check the Venn diagram to see who's at the center. If it's enough people, eureka, TikTok must cause all sorts of mental illnesses. Yeah, but not really. Correlational studies only tell us these two groups are interconnected. They don't tell us whether TikTok or depression is the chicken or the egg. But longitudinal studies on social media do. These aren't as common because longitudinal studies take more time and money, and unless you're Santa Claus, it's not exactly cheap to track thousands of kids over the years. However, researchers from Brigham Young University, Finland, and Canada were able to secure the funding for this very purpose and found no true correlation between social media and anxiety and depression. Conversely, German and Canadian studies found depressed and/or anxious people were more likely to use social media, and that depressive symptoms could even predict social media usage. This could indicate that people dealing with mental illnesses might be drawn to the hyperstimulation, dopamine rewards, and so on that social media facilitates. All of this strongly suggests that our society's anxiety and depression is the chicken, and social media is the egg. So yes, TikTok is absolutely changing the social media landscape, but it's not fundamentally changing us. In a tale as old as time, we've hyper-focused on technology and ignored the power of our own psychology. To be clear, we're not trying to say that TikTok is a societal good. As we discussed in our previous episode on Elon's potential acquisition of Twitter, calling platforms good or bad is kind of missing the point. TikTok is used by influencers and wannabe influencers. It's used by nurses, teachers, and therapists. It's also used by, say, radical extremists. However, the knee-jerk reaction to judge it as inherently evil or dangerous is misguided. A more apt description might be, TikTok is chaotic neutral. The reality is that TikTok is a free product whose chief source of income is ad revenue, and the only way to increase that income is to keep people on the app for as long as possible. Our attention is a valuable resource, and boy, oh boy, is it in demand. In this new attention economy, focus is our scarcest and most valuable resource. So how do we keep social media companies like TikTok from stealing it right out of our time wallets? Author Mark Manson proposes an attention diet, where we identify worthwhile information and relationships, cut out the junk, and cultivate habits that foster deeper focus and longer attention spans. The goal is to focus on what adds value to your life by being more intentional about what we consume on social media and how long we spend there. This is obviously easier said than done, but maybe, just maybe, if we can build our mental fortitude like we build our imaginary investment portfolios, we might just be able to beat the algorithm after all. But what do you guys think? Can we win our attention back from the world's most effective algorithm? Do we even want our attention back if it means being bored as f? Let us know what you think in the comments. Big thanks to our patrons for all your support, and be sure to check out our new Patreon features. Also, check out our new stream, Wisecrack Live. It happens every Thursday, 11 a.m. Pacific. Hit that subscribe button like you're tapping the Do Not Disturb button and touching some grass. and don't forget to ring that bell. As always, thanks for watching. Later.